if they ever link me to this, remember I was approached, not involved.
This could be the scandal that ends the NBA.
Good morning. Today we are here in New York to announce a historic arrest across a wide-sweeping criminal enterprise that envelops both the NBA and La Casa Nostra.
Right now, the biggest shockwave to ever hit basketball is unfolding, and LeBron's name is right in the center of it. Tens of millions are on the line. Yeah, not thousands, not even hundreds of thousands, tens of millions.
And the fraud is mind-boggling. It's not hundreds of dollars. It's not thousands of dollars. It's not tens of thousands of dollars. It's not even millions of dollars. We're talking about tens of millions of dollars in fraud and theft and robbery.
Arrests have already started, and the people getting cuffed aren't random nobodies. We're talking Hall of Famers, current coaches, and active star players. And here's the craziest part. According to the FBI, 4 major mafia families have been secretly pulling strings inside the NBA for years. This isn't just a scandal. It's a bomb that could blow the league apart forever. You're not ready for this one. It started off quiet, just another regular Thursday morning until chaos broke loose. Across the country, people woke up to pounding at their doors. Federal agents were everywhere, kicking off one of the biggest sports-related crackdowns in American history. News outlets went into overdrive within hours. This wasn't a random sting operation. This was a coordinated federal sweep that hit 11 states at once. The name of the operation? You won't believe it. Operation Nothing But Net. Sounds like a movie, right? But this was 100% real. By noon, more than 30 people were already in custody. And get this, some of them were household names, former players, ex-coaches, and even faces we've seen on ESPN panels. The FBI wasn't playing games this time. Behind it all were 2 massive criminal schemes that sound straight out of casino, but with basketball jerseys. The first, a secret insider sports betting network, way beyond the fantasy leagues everyone jokes about. This was deep, underground, and perfectly timed to make millions. The second, a high-stakes poker ring, rigged, ruthless, and connected to 4 of the most dangerous crime families in the country. When the indictments dropped, fans froze mid-scroll. Phones stopped, social feeds went wild. The FBI didn't just release a PDF, they held a full-blown press conference in New York City. Agents rolled in like it was a movie scene, carrying boxes of seized evidence, stacks of laptops, cash, and so many hard drives, it looked like NASA's backup server. Yeah, that's how serious it was. Then the U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of New York stepped up and broke down the madness. Years of undercover work, operations across 11 states, and 31 total arrests. The audience was stunned, but nothing could prepare them for what came next. FBI Director Kash Patel walked to the podium, stared straight into the cameras, and said 3 names.
But as you now know, individuals such as Chauncey Billups, Damon Jones, and Terry Rozier were taken into custody today. Former, current NBA players and coaches.
3 names no NBA fan ever expected to hear tied to the mafia. The entire basketball world lost its mind.
Not only did we crack into the fraud that these perpetrators committed on the grand stage of the NBA, but we also entered and executed a system of justice against.
The room fell silent for a split second, then erupted. This wasn't just about gambling anymore. It was about power, corruption, and manipulation deep inside professional basketball. The FBI revealed that the 2 major schemes, the insider betting ring and the high-stakes poker network, were backed by 4 of New York's most infamous crime families.
La Casa Nostra, to include the Bonanno, Gambino, Genovese, and Lucchese crime families.
Their method? Something the Bureau called spot fixing. Not full-on game fixing, but subtle manipulation. Just enough to shift outcomes, move the odds, and cash out millions without raising suspicion. The details were jaw-dropping and the implications even worse. Because if this level of control existed, it meant someone had been playing the NBA like a personal casino for years. And the question now is, who knew and how deep does it really go? A quiet substitution here, a sudden ankle tightness there, just tiny moves that flipped betting lines overnight and made the right people a whole lot of money. This wasn't random bad luck or coincidences piling up. No, this was a system, a machine that had been running for years. You know it's serious when the FBI director himself steps in to handle the case. And the scariest part? The Bureau admitted this operation wasn't new. It had been in motion since 2020. They'd been quietly tracking everything: wiretaps, crypto transfers, offshore accounts under fake names. And when they finally dropped the hammer, they had receipts for everything. By the end of that explosive press conference, one thing was undeniable. This wasn't just another sports scandal. This could literally collapse the NBA from the inside out. And right in the middle of the mess, three names that once stood for loyalty, grind, and brotherhood, now tangled up with fraud, betting, and the mafia. The first name to drop sent shockwaves through the entire sports world, Chauncey Billups, the man fans called Mr. Big Shot, basketball royalty, the captain who led that legendary 2004 Pistons squad that stunned the Lakers and flipped the league upside down. He was always the calm in the storm, the one who thrived under pressure when everyone else cracked. Players respected him, analysts praised him. He was the example of leadership done right. After retirement, he slid right into broadcasting, then made the perfect jump to coaching as head of the Portland Trail Blazers. So when the news broke that Chauncey had been arrested in Portland, the shock hit like a brick wall. This was the guy who preached accountability, who mentored young players on discipline and integrity. Hearing his name connected to poker games linked with organized crime felt unreal, like a Hollywood plot twist that no one could have predicted. Court documents painted a darker picture. They said he participated in facilitated high-stakes events, which everyone knows is just a polished way of saying mafia-run poker tables. Fans couldn't even process it. It wasn't just the crime, it was the fall. Seeing someone once seen as a blueprint for greatness suddenly pulled into scandal? Unbelievable. Then came the next name, Terry Rozier, and this one cut deep. Terry's story was always bigger than basketball. A real-life underdog rise from nothing. He grew up in Youngstown, Ohio, grinding through a rough childhood. His dad behind bars, his mom working nonstop just to keep things together. He clawed his way to the NBA through pure hunger and fire. When Kyrie went down back in 2018, Rozier stepped up, averaging nearly 17 points a game and carrying Boston deep into the playoffs. That's when Scary Terry was born. Fans wore his shirt, shouted his name, and watched him transform into a star before their eyes. So when Charlotte handed him that massive contract, it felt like a victory for every underdog chasing the dream. But now, the dream's cracked wide open. The FBI arrested him in Orlando, accusing him of leaking injury and lineup info, data that insiders could use to manipulate betting odds. The moment that news hit, it felt like someone just sucker punched the entire league. The fans were heartbroken, the players speechless, it was chaos. And then came the third shock, Damon Jones, the glue guy, the shooter, the one everyone in the locker room trusted. He wasn't the superstar type, but he was everywhere during the 2000s. You couldn't watch basketball without seeing him. 10 teams in 11 years, always the reliable veteran voice teams leaned on. He was the kind of player who made everyone around him better, a real one. And of course, who could forget that massive playoff shot for the Cavs back in 2005? The one that sent Cleveland past the Wizards and had fans losing their minds. So to hear his name tangled up in this mess, linked to mob-connected poker games and insider leaks, felt like the final blow. The kind of twist that makes you question everything you thought you knew about the game. The deeper the FBI dug, the darker it got, and every name they exposed wasn't just a scandal, it was a legacy on the line. The NBA had been hit hard before, but nothing like this. And people everywhere were asking the same question. Who's next? It was a moment LeBron would never forget. After Damon Jones retired, he didn't just fade away. He flipped his whole career and became a coach, and more importantly, LeBron's personal shooting coach. That's how close they were. This wasn't some casual teammate bond. They were family. So when Damon's name popped up in the FBI indictment, the word betrayal instantly became the headline. The documents tied him directly to both insider leaks and those high-stakes poker games that allegedly funneled money through mafia-backed betting circles. It wasn't just career-ending, it was heartbreaking. When reporters asked LeBron about it, his reaction said everything. You could see that mix of disbelief and pain in his eyes. He told them, "I can't believe he'd do this after everything, after all the trust I gave him," and honestly, that line hit everyone. Because in LeBron's world, where loyalty means everything, that kind of betrayal cuts deep.
I can't believe he'd do this after everything, after all the trust I gave him.
What made this whole thing sting even more wasn't just the names being exposed, it was who they were before the fall. Billups, the mentor, Rozier, the fighter, Jones, the brother. 3 different men, 3 different generations, all crashing into the same dark intersection where fame, trust, and organized crime collide. That's why people are calling this the darkest chapter in modern NBA history. It's not just the legal chaos or the social media frenzy, it's the heartbreak behind it. These were men who once embodied everything good about the game, and now they're being accused of the kind of corruption that could destroy it. If they're convicted, this won't just be a scandal, it'll be a turning point for the entire NBA. Because for the first time in decades, the league might have to face the real question. How deep does this corruption actually go, and can the NBA survive it? But before anyone thinks this all came out of nowhere, let's rewind a little. Because the warning signs were flashing bright red long before this bust ever happened. Back in April 2024, the league saw its first major wake-up call when Jontay Porter, Toronto Raptors forward, and yes, the younger brother of Michael Porter Jr., was handed a lifetime ban, the first one in over 50 years. The reason? He basically turned prop bets into his personal side hustle. According to the NBA's investigation, Porter had been leaking insider info about his own health, whether he'd play, how many minutes he'd get, all those small details that bettors crave and only team staff should know. Then he or others would place bets using that secret info. It all came crashing down on March 20th when Porter mysteriously checked out of a game just 3 minutes in, claiming he felt sick. Minutes later, one bettor dropped a staggering $80,000 on a parlay predicting Porter would underperform. And guess what? That bet hit perfectly. When investigators dug deeper, it got even darker. The FBI found out Porter was drowning in debt to underground gambling operators, the kind of people you never want to owe money to. There were threats, pressure, and coercion. It wasn't just about quick cash anymore, it was survival. And now looking back, that case feels like the blueprint for everything we're seeing explode today. The same tactics, the same patterns, the same type of people lurking behind the scenes.
And in at least one instance, they got their information by threatening a current player, Porter, because of his pre-existing gambling debts.
But here's where it gets uncomfortable, really uncomfortable for the NBA itself. Because while all of this was happening, the league was busy going all in on sports betting partnerships. Deals with DraftKings, FanDuel, Caesars, you name it. There were live odds flashing during broadcasts, sponsored betting segments, and even sportsbooks inside arenas. Think about that. The same league banning players for gambling was literally cashing checks from the gambling industry. The hypocrisy writes itself. After Jontay Porter's lifetime ban, Commissioner Adam Silver tried to steady the ship with one of those polished zero-tolerance statements, but even he admitted it was a wake-up call. He promised stricter rules, more education, more oversight, but then in the same breath, he defended the league's betting partnerships, calling them a modern part of fan engagement. Now, fast forward to today's chaos, and that phrase sounds almost ironic because this doesn't feel like fan engagement anymore. It feels like open season. And here's the kicker. The new court filings from this latest FBI investigation suggest that the same underground gambling network that once trapped Jontay Porter might actually overlap with the very circles being raided now. The debt collectors, the money movers, the data leakers, it's all connected. If that's true, then this scandal isn't just exposing rogue players. It's peeling back the curtain on an entire underground system that's been feeding off the NBA for years. And the craziest part? We might still be at the beginning of this story, because every new name that drops could take the league closer to the edge, and once that trust is gone, can the game we love ever really recover? So technically, this whole mafia scandal had its fingerprints all over the NBA long before anyone noticed. By the time Chauncey Billups got placed on leave and Tiago Splitter stepped in as interim coach, for Portland, the story had already evolved from a few shady incidents to what looked like full-blown systemic corruption. What started as one player trying to cover his debts now looks like a blueprint for something way bigger. Because if Jontay Porter was the test run, what we're seeing now is the sequel, and this time the stakes are sky high. While the public was still arguing over Porter's lifetime ban, the FBI had already been months ahead, watching, listening, tracking, and waiting for the perfect time to strike. This wasn't some last-minute scramble. They'd been building this case for years. They called it Operation Nothing But Net. And honestly, the scale of it feels unreal. Agents were deployed across 11 states, from New York all the way to Nevada, piecing together what they described as one of the most complex financial and sports corruption cases in modern U.S. history. And these weren't just desk agents pushing paper. According to reports that later leaked, the feds were deep undercover. Hidden cameras, wiretaps, burner phone tracing, late-night surveillance outside private poker rooms in Vegas. Everything. They logged thousands of hours of footage and, get this, over 3,000 recorded informant calls, some of them coming from inside the NBA. Yeah, we're talking player assistants, locker room staff, even front office employees quietly feeding intel to the feds, each one trying to save themselves from catching federal charges. And here's where things got really wild. The FBI's cyber division went straight for the money trail. They tracked cryptocurrency transactions moving through the underground betting web. That's how they connected offshore gambling sites, mafia-backed accounts, and encrypted wallets tied to US-based consultants. These consultants weren't just randoms. They were the middlemen, the ones taking locker room gossip and injury info and flipping it into multi-million-dollar betting schemes. What the FBI built wasn't just a case, it was a blueprint for criminal exposure. Every payment, every text, every sneaky ankle soreness report, time-stamped and verified. They weren't after a few rogue gamblers. They wanted an airtight federal takedown that could survive any appeal, any defense lawyer, and any PR spin the league tried to pull. But here's what the paperwork doesn't show: the chaos behind the scenes. Because to really get how deep this mess goes, you gotta see how these schemes actually operated. The feds broke it all down into two criminal machines working side by side: the insider betting network and the underground poker empire. Two monsters feeding each other money and protection like some twisted partnership from hell. The insider betting network was the slicker one, the cleaner face of the operation. It ran quietly between late 2022 and early 2024, looking like regular market activity until you zoomed in. 7 teams showed suspicious betting line movements, and not just random ones. The Charlotte Hornets, Orlando Magic, Portland Trail Blazers, Los Angeles Lakers, Toronto Raptors, Cleveland Cavaliers, and Miami Heat all had bets spike seconds after internal team reports went live. You can't make that kind of timing up. It had to come from the inside. Then came the underground poker empire, the darker, dirtier part of the web. This one stretched from 2019 to 2025, hidden under the glamour of so-called celebrity poker nights. But under all the champagne, the designer suits, and the private jets, it was pure organized crime. These weren't your average poker games. The tables themselves were tricked out, X-ray sensors, hidden cameras, and remote-controlled shufflers that could literally manipulate the outcome mid-hand. The kind of tech you'd expect in a spy movie, not a card game. Every single venue screamed luxury and secrecy: Hamptons mansions, Vegas sky suites, Miami penthouses, Manhattan hotel ballrooms, you name it. And behind all that glitz was the same dark network of mob financiers, crypto fixers, and NBA insiders trading secrets for cash. It was the perfect illusion: money, fame, power, all hiding a criminal machine running just beneath the surface of the league. By the time the operation blew open, the FBI didn't just have evidence. They had a roadmap proving how deep organized crime had sunk its claws into professional basketball. And if even half of what's in those sealed indictments turns out to be true, then the NBA might not just be facing another scandal. It might be staring at the biggest collapse of trust in sports history. They had a nickname for their secret setup: the face card table. Sounds slick, right? But behind the name was something far darker. The face cards were NBA players, big names who drew in the crowd. They were the bait. Their fame made the games look glamorous, while the fish, wealthy businessmen and investors, lined up desperate to buy a seat at the same table as their basketball heroes.
The scheme targeted victims known as, quote, fish, who were often lured to participate in these rigged games by the chance to play alongside former professional athletes who were known as, quote, face cards.
What those fish didn't realize was that they weren't playing alongside their idols. They were walking straight into a trap. According to the feds, Chauncey Billups and Damon Jones were allegedly used as the public faces, the ones who made the whole thing look legit.
The so-called face cards included the defendant Chauncey Billups, who at the time of the scheme was a former NBA player and is currently the head coach of the Portland Trail Blazers.
The games had all the sparkle of celebrity culture, luxury cards, bodyguards, champagne, but the outcome was rigged before the first hand was even dealt. Once those buy-ins hit the table, the house had already won. They skimmed 10 to 20% off every single pot, millions gone, hidden behind so-called event fees and charity contributions. By the time investigators traced the money trail, the numbers were staggering. $7 million in confirmed victim losses and more than $20 million laundered through shell companies, crypto wallets, and even fake charitable foundations. And the mafia fingerprints, straight out of New York's darkest criminal lineage, Bonanno, Gambino, Genovese, and Lucchese families. This poker empire was mob-backed from day one, and they weren't afraid to enforce their rules the old-school way. Court filings mentioned threats, vandalism, and even one armed robbery where a losing player was cornered in a Manhattan parking garage and stripped of $500,000 in jewelry. That was the breaking point. That's when the FBI realized this wasn't a gambling ring anymore. This was a criminal infrastructure, a machine that stretched coast to coast, feeding off the NBA's image. And here's the craziest twist. Both operations, the betting and the poker empire, weren't separate, they were connected. The poker games produced the dirty money and the insider bets cleaned it. Win on the court, lose at the table, on paper, it all balanced perfectly. Diabolical, right? Federal prosecutors didn't hold back when the indictments dropped. The list of charges read like a movie script: wire fraud, conspiracy, money laundering, illegal gambling, and obstruction of justice. Each one carried years, sometimes decades, in potential prison time. In total, over 30 defendants were named across multiple indictments, with Billups, Rozier, and Jones sitting right at the center of the storm. If convicted on the top counts, some of them could be facing 20 to 30 years behind bars. But for the NBA, this went beyond punishing a few players. This was about saving the league's image, and maybe even its survival. Because let's be real, sports and crime have crossed paths before, and history keeps repeating itself. Take it back to 1919, the infamous Black Sox scandal. 8 Chicago White Sox players accused of taking bribes to throw the World Series. That one didn't just ruin a team, it nearly killed baseball. Fans were furious, sponsors fled, and trust in the game hit rock bottom. The league had to create the commissioner's office just to restore faith in the sport. Judge Kennesaw Mountain Landis came in swinging, banning players for life and cleaning house like a one-man wrecking crew. Fast forward nearly a century, and switch the sport to basketball, and history repeated itself with the Tim Donaghy case, the NBA referee who admitted to betting on games he officiated. Think about that for a second. The guy holding the whistle, the one controlling the pace of the game, literally betting on his own calls. That wasn't just corruption, it was betrayal built into the system. The scandal shook the NBA's foundation, but the league survived. This time, though, the roots go way deeper, because this isn't only about betting, it's about the company you keep. Sports in the streets have always been closer than anyone wants to admit. Look back through basketball history, and you'll see that same dark thread running just beneath the surface. Take Javaris Crittenton, once a promising young guard with the Lakers. He ended up convicted of manslaughter and tied to the Mansfield Crips in Atlanta. His story wasn't about point shaving or gambling. It was about how quickly the wrong people can drag an athlete down the wrong road. Tragic and haunting. But it shows just how close the worlds of sports, crime, and power can get. And it doesn't stop there. Zach Randolph and Tony Allen, 2 beloved Memphis Grizzlies legends, both had their names appear in police reports involving alleged ties to the Gangster Disciples, one of the most notorious gangs in America. And then there's Nikola Pekovic, the Montenegro-born big man who dominated under the rim in Minnesota. Fans loved his toughness, but his off-court life told a different story. He's been linked for years to Balkan crime circles, including associates tied to the Shkaljari clan, one of Europe's most feared organized groups. Every time one of these stories surfaces, it's like deja vu, a reminder that fame doesn't erase risk. The higher you climb, the darker the shadows get. So now, with the FBI pulling back the curtain on what might be the biggest criminal scandal in NBA history, the league is standing at a crossroads. Does it clean house like baseball did a century ago? Or does it crumble under the weight of its own silence? Because this isn't just about money, it's about trust, loyalty, and the dangerous line between celebrity and crime. And right now, that line is starting to disappear fast. After Nikola Pekovic hung up his jersey, his name started popping up in European headlines, linked to major figures in the Serbian and Montenegrin underworld. It wasn't just whispers. It was patterns forming in plain sight. And when you line up all these stories, from the old school scandals to what's unfolding right now, it's impossible to ignore. This current NBA crisis is not just another headline, it's the final echo of a century's worth of warnings that the sports world refused to listen to. That's what makes this one hit different. Because this time, the game isn't just battling gamblers, shady referees, or one rogue player, it's fighting its own reflection. And the reactions? Oh, they came flying fast and messy. NBA legends and players couldn't stay quiet, and every take added more fuel to the fire. Draymond Green was one of the first to speak up, and surprisingly, his take was cool-headed. He said, "It's a tough time for everyone involved, for the league and for the fans." But he made it clear, this isn't about blaming the NBA for doing business with gambling companies. He was cautious, diplomatic, almost like he knew this storm was far from over.
But I'm not going to sit here and be like, man, y'all partner with a gambling company, you open a can of worms. Like, that can of worms can be open with partnering with gambling companies or not.
But then came Shaq, and you know Shaq doesn't sugarcoat anything. He stepped in and called it exactly what it is, reminding everyone that not all money is good money. His words hit hard because they came from someone who's seen every side of fame and fortune and knows how ugly it can get when greed gets mixed with the gain.
All money ain't good money. So if you're making $9 million and you're dealing in certain things, like how much more do you need?
Then Kenny Smith added his angle, one that hit a little deeper. He said, gambling is an addiction. An addiction doesn't care if you're a player, a coach, or a Hall of Famer. That's what needs fixing first.
We have to realize gambling is an addiction. So the addiction of it is what makes you make illogical decisions.
It was a rare moment of empathy amid the chaos. But of course, Charles Barkley wasn't about to let that slide. He fired back in classic Chuck fashion, saying this wasn't about addiction. It was about greed. Plain and simple. That money hunger that keeps driving people to push the limits until everything crashes.
These dudes are stupid. Why are they stupid? Under no circumstances can you fix basketball games. Under no circumstances.
The fallout from this scandal hit like a meteor. It was fast, loud, and devastating. Reputations built over decades got shredded overnight. Players who were once mentors, icons, and fan favorites suddenly found themselves at the center of one of the darkest chapters in NBA history. The NBA and NBPA scrambled to contain the damage, dropping official statements about full cooperation with the FBI and DOJ while repeating that everyone is presumed innocent until proven guilty. But let's be real, once the news hit the internet, the damage was done. Social media went nuclear. Fans were debating nonstop, timelines were flooded, and the conversation got way deeper than just legal drama. It turned moral. People started asking questions that hit at the core of the sport. Who can you even trust in a locker room anymore? And while the emotional shockwaves tore through the league, the economic hit came right behind it. Ticket sales dropped instantly. The Portland Trail Blazers season opener saw nearly 10% of seats empty, a number the team hadn't seen in years. And the merch, it tanked just as fast. Terry Rozier jerseys dropped 15% in October alone. Fans didn't just stop buying, they started returning old gear too. The same names once printed on posters were now tied to federal cases, and that kind of stain doesn't wash off easy. It wasn't just about the money anymore, it was about the soul of the game. Because if the NBA can't keep its own legends clean, how can fans keep believing the competition is real? And as the league scrambled to hold its image together, one chilling truth kept echoing across every sports show, podcast, and post. This isn't the end of the stories, it's just the beginning of the reckoning. And it didn't just shake the league, it rattled the entire business world around it. The NBA's official gambling partners saw their stocks drop between 3% and 7%. Investors panicked, worried that the league's scandals could trigger tighter regulations and crash their image overnight. What started as a sports story had now turned into a Wall Street nightmare. Looking ahead, the NBA is standing at a major crossroads. Everyone's bracing for a wave of federal oversight like never before. Insiders are whispering that Washington might even create a new regulatory agency dedicated to monitoring gambling inside professional sports. Coaches, players, even team staff could soon be facing total bans on betting, along with mandatory audits, phone checks, and financial tracking. Those slick partnerships between sports leagues and betting companies, they might be on borrowed time, the flashy promos, the on-screen betting odds, the sponsored segments. Yeah, all that could be rolled back fast. The NBA might be entering a whole new era where gambling isn't eliminated, but tightly controlled. Far less cozy, far less corrupt, and definitely far less profitable for the insiders who used to treat it like their playground. And as this chapter of chaos starts to close, at least for now, fans, analysts, and players are left staring at one brutal truth. The game will never look the same again. Because once that trust breaks, rebuilding it isn't just hard, it's nearly impossible. For over 75 years, the NBA has been more than a league. It's been a belief system, something fans could count on. But now, that foundation's been cracked wide open. Every win, every whistle, every trade will carry a new question. Was it real or was someone betting on the outcome? If you thought this story was wild, hit that like button and make sure you subscribe, because trust me, the NBA isn't done shocking us yet. Which part of this whole scandal blew your mind the most? Drop it down in the comments. I want to hear your take. And don't forget to turn on notifications, because we're diving deep into every twist, every arrest, and every jaw-dropping secret as it breaks. This is far from over, and you don't want to miss what comes next.